Hi, John here for yet another Sunday. Can you believe where these weeks fly by? So today I thought I'd have a look at something a little bit different but the same. We're going to have a look at some water-soluble oil pastels. I think most people believe that water-soluble oil pastels are a bit of a gimmick, and I can see why they would. However, I'm pretty sure there are ways of getting some really great pictures with these. I haven't used them in Vengeance yet, but I have a few sets of water-soluble oil pastels, and in addition to what I'm about to show you, there are ones like Zila, which I'm quite interested in, and I'm sure there are also more, but I haven't come across them. They're very few and far between, and there's only a couple of different companies that really make them. I think there is a difference between them and oil pastels, and we'll explore that in a minute. But the problem is, I don't think really anybody knows how to use them. Now, from my experience I've had with oil pastels and my experience I've had with other mediums, as of course you know, I think that they're probably not going to be too different to oil pastels used with terpenoid or terps or white spirit or whatever you use. And I don't think they're really going to be a lot different to using watercolour pencils, only a lot softer. Let's go over and have a look, shall we? So first off, I'm going to show you what I've brought to hand. I'm sure I've got some more somewhere, but I just can't find them. If you saw the amount of oil pastels I have, and the state that my studio is generally in, you'll understand why I can't find them. Anyway, this set here is a Prima set. I don't believe this set is made anymore. I've not seen it brand new for sale, and I had to source these second hand because I was after them, because I wanted the full spectrum of colours. Mungyo are another one that I've just remembered that do water-soluble oil pastels. They're quite interesting, and I shall have some of them at some point. But anyway, getting back to this, these are the Prima oil pastels. Probably a vintage set now, and like most oil pastels, not all, but most oil pastels, they generally only come in 24 colours. I haven't really seen them used in Vengeance by artists like myself, but I'm going to change that at some point. And generally I've seen them used by crafters, which is bizarre and odd. I don't quite know why the difference would be, but it is. So let's have a look at these. You can still pick these up here and there. You'll see that they're in a bit of a mess. Because they are old. So you can see that most oil pastels that are water soluble come with this point on them. Don't understand why that is, why there should be a difference. Perhaps it's just if you didn't know what you were using and you had a point on them, you'd kind of look a bit better. But they're not sticky. You know, they come off on your hands like you'd expect oil pastels to. And on my piece of paper, I nearly finished this piece of paper, they do feel like normal oil pastels. The feeling I get from them is that these would probably pill up, and they're flaking a bit, as you can see, but these are the old set, but I'll come to that in a minute. And they also feel quite light. It's like there's a lack of oil in them that is not contributing to their weight. I don't know if that is the case, but that's what it feels like. Let's just see how that blends out. Yeah, not great. Not great. But they're not necessarily meant to be used for this. And again, it's cold in my studio. So that's an old-fashioned vintage set. But more up to date, Prima, from what I can gather, have changed to these ones. Now, these are a basic set and a rustic set. And these are among some of the most expensive on the market. Why that would be, I really do not know. But these little sets of 12, basics and rustic, are probably, I don't know, 16 to 20 pounds generally. You can get them cheaper, and I must have got them cheaper because I tend not to pay too much if I can help it. So you've got these ones, and inside, I'll just explain what they are in a minute. You've got, that's the basic set, and you've got all your basic colours in there. The difference between these is they're now called Art Philosophy. Now, I believe, although I don't know, that Art Philosophy is Prima. So it's Prima Art Philosophy, and I believe somewhere on the box it does actually say that. I think it might even say it on the pastel. No, it doesn't. It just says Art Philosophy. But again, these feel very light compared to most oil pastels. They feel like there's something missing. Not quite sure what that is, but there's something in their constitution that is missing, and that's possibly the thing that makes them water soluble. I'm not really sure, to be perfectly honest. But they're certainly not as heavy and gloopy, for want of a better word, than other oil pastels. And let's just see, this is a fairly recent new box. Let's just see how that applies to the paper. It's not too different. Feels a little bit better, a little bit smoother, probably because it's newer. But it's going on there, and it goes on thick. We'll have a look at the water aspect of it in a minute or two. Let's just blend that out. Seems like it's blending out a lot better. Yeah, you could use these as ordinary oil pastels if you wanted, but I wouldn't say that you'd get a great result from them. I would look to other oil pastels personally for normal oil pastel work. So that's the basic set. I'll leave the lid off so you can keep seeing them. And then we have this rustic set. So my belief is it's more earth tone colours. And yes, it is. You can see these are bright and vibrant. These are kind of more muted. And these are the Art Philosophy. That is the complete range to my knowledge. I haven't seen any others, and I do keep searching for these things, as you know. That's a lovely colour. I do love that colour. Now, in a minute, we're going to see what they do come out like when they have water applied. So we'll keep the lid off them. On the box, this is the basics box, there's really not a lot to say. It says water-soluble basics. That's really all there is on the front, and a couple of foreign languages. On the side of the box, Prima marketing, so Art Philosophy are Prima. They've just updated themselves, obviously. Say non-toxic. They conform to ASTM D4236, I think that says. It's very small writing. And they're made in Korea. So that's quite interesting. On the other side of the box, nothing. Inside the box, it says, explore your artistic possibilities with these artist quality, we'll see, water-soluble oil pastels. The ease of watercolouring merged with the texture and smoothness of an oil pastel, all in one fantastic combination stick. Use them on a variety of surfaces from watercolour, paper and colouring books. Now that's something I must mention about. If I would say that if you're going to use these with the water, you're going to want watercolour paper or a paper that will take water. So a mixed media paper perhaps. I would say colouring books, I can't see how they would work in colouring books because they would just cockle under the water, wouldn't they? The mixed media papers and so much more can be used direct to paper or diluted with water for a soft and watercolour-like effect. We'll have a look at that in a second, and then that gives you all the colours. There's nothing on the bottom of the boxes, and it says the same on the other box. On the whole, to the vintage ones, it basically says less. Yeah, it says a lot less. Where are they made from in this one? Let's see. It says made in Korea, so it's probably just a change of company name somewhere along the line. Updated, upbranded, whatever. And then the other set that I have for the moment are the Montmartre water-soluble oil pastels. I'm going to review them separately because I think they deserve it, and that's a 48-piece set, much like the Zila, who also do a 48-piece set. I'm really quite interested in these ones because I have seen them used, and I think you're going to get some really good effects and styles and colours and pictures out of this. But I'm going to leave them to one side for the moment, and we'll concentrate on just water-soluble oil pastels today. Let's have a look at the blending, shall we? We'll go for the newer sets because it's only fair that we should. I'm going to do it in this little piece here because I can't keep wasting paper. I've wasted almost a whole pad on this. But, you know, it's worth it. It gives me what I need to know. So for this, because I haven't done a picture with them at the moment, I'm going to use a cotton bud and a brush. I'm going to use the cotton bud to blend together dry, and then I'm going to use a brush to dilute them out, and I'm also going to use the cotton bud to dilute them out as well and see which one really works the best. Until I do an actual full-scale picture in them, I'm not going to let you know any techniques. I do know of techniques already, but I'm not going to let you know any until I've done the picture, because there's a lot more to that than I believe I know, and I need the experience to be able to tell you properly. So let's have a look at a colour, shall we? Let's go for the purples. We always go for the purples, don't we? So I'm going to lay that on there lightly like I would any other oil pastel. I'm just going to lay that lightly, and I'm just going to build that up with another layer. Yeah, it's going on there quite nice. It would be, if I was classing it as just an oil pastel, I would say it would be a semi-soft, semi-hard oil pastel. So press a little bit harder. It doesn't look to me as if the pigment is there, and it does have all this wax or oil texture coming off in as I'm doing it. It's like I'm scraping the actual oil pastel off. Let's zoom you in a bit better for that, shall we? It is transparent. I don't know if it's meant to be, but this one is. Let's go for one of the rustic ones. We'll go for this orange, just because it's the brightest. Again, it's doing exactly the same. It's picked up the other oil pastel when I overlapped. Normally I wouldn't overlap there. So it's going on quite thick the more I press, but I'm getting all this residue. Can't say I particularly like that. So let's have a look at blending, shall we? Just in its ordinary dry state. Bear in mind it is cold in my studio today, so these will probably work a little bit better. Right, they're not blending out great in my opinion, but then they're not generally meant to be used like this from what I can gather. And they seem as if they're all clumping up a bit and congealing and pilling. A little bit of water on the cotton bud and see what happens. A little bit more perhaps. Yeah, see, it's dissolving it now. And that's much better. Oh yes. Wow. Yeah, I like that. Oh, I do like that. I like that a lot. Wow, that's fantastic. Now let's do the purple. I think the thing is, if you're going to use cotton buds, you're going to go through a lot of them. Let's get it wet. Needs a bit more water. I would say you don't need too much water with these. A bit like when you're using watercolour pencils. So yeah, that's really quite nice. I quite like that. I've kind of messed up on that purple a bit. Let's see if we can put some more on, shall we? Yeah, I can put some more on. I can clean it up a bit. Blend it out a bit. And let's see how they blend into each other. Oh, much better. Oh yes, that yellow orange is really quite nice. You can see how you're getting watercolour effects. I'm getting all this pooling up here, but I'm not adept with them yet. Let's try that again with a brush. That was actually really quite nice with the cotton bud. It's not the best demo there I've done because experimenting with them. So there's the purple. There's the yellow orange. It's really quite a nice colour. It feels quite scratchy actually. Right, let's put some water on it with a brush. Now, I'm not going to soak the brush. I'm just going to put, I'll show you. I'm just going to put it in, and then I'm going to basically take off most of the water. Perhaps I could go to the extent of dabbing a tissue on it, but I'm not going to at this point. So we need to work it into the oil pastel. Maybe a little bit water, or more water. Oh yeah, that's great. That's reminded me of the Neo colours. And let's just blend it into this purple. Let's get the purple wet first, shall we? And then we can blend them into each other. Perhaps do a wet in wet. I'm not impressed with the purple. But purples are quite a unusual colour anyway in most oil pastels. So you're not getting really too much of a different effect there. They're blending into each other quite nice. Dried my brush off a bit and I'm just gently tickling that into each other. Yeah, I think you get some quite nice colours out of that. You need to experiment, but I think you would get what you need. So another way of doing them, I don't particularly say I will like this way, but I suppose you could just feed off the oil pastel itself and use that as paint. You'd have to scrub into it quite a lot by the look of this though. It's not really giving me a lot of pigment. But yeah, you can do that. Again, see if we can dip the oil pastel into the water and see what that does. Oh, that's not bad, is it? That's dissolving really quite nice. That might be a good way of using them. So perhaps do that and then perhaps just use a little bit of a damp brush just to... They are dissolving really quite well, but you could really get a really lovely watercolour effect with these. But if you're going to do that, why wouldn't you just use watercolour? It's hard to say, really. I suppose it's a bit of fun. You could use these as the basis of an oil pastel picture. Perhaps put all your different tones on in your colours, say this green, and then go over the top of it. That is another thing that I'm going to experience or experiment with to see if once these are dry, whether you can layer over them. But we'll do that in another video. I've experienced them a bit more and when I'm going to offer over techniques. But just wanted you to see what water-soluble oil pastels are all about and whether they would be any good to you. And you can get a very light shade, a very dark shade, or something in between. So that's quite good. While I'm here, just because I can, and because it might be interesting, is that really thick gloopy bit that I put on to begin with. Let's see what that comes out like. Now, you don't need a lot of water, but you need enough. Now, that's melting into a thick paint as I do that. And then I suppose from there, you would just do whatever you wanted with it. And that's actually come out really nice. Yeah, that's not bad at all. That's quite thick. Probably more like an acrylic texture, but you could add more water to that and get a more of a watercolour effect. So that's actually really quite interesting. I'm sure you could probably do things like wet in wet. I think the biggest thing I'm finding at the moment, just experimenting here, is that probably the thing that is going to be the overwhelming factor is water control to the amount of pigment. So what I'm saying is You probably need more water to get this watercolour effect, less water to get this acrylic look or gouache look, and if you're going to blend, I would say probably a drier brush. So, well, that's a start for techniques, isn't it? But we'll get to that in another video. And of course it spreads quite a long way out. So, just a few colours. I'm assuming you could mix them. And, yeah, that sounds really quite interesting. Once that's dried, I'm going to experiment with layering on top. I'm going to experiment to see whether they reactivate. And that will be in another video. But I just wanted to show you the water-soluble oil pastels in case you've never seen them before. That was quite interesting, wasn't it? I think, in all honesty, these are going to be much better used dissolved. But I'm not saying that you can't put clean, nice oil pastel on top of them. So you can get the best of both worlds from this. A bit like if you were to do a watercolour and then put your oil pastels on top. But in this case, you don't need both things, or both mediums, do you? I'm really quite excited to have a go with these. I want to see if I can do wet in wet. I want to see if I can do dry on wet. I want to see if I can do dry on dry. And see if the bottom would reactivate if I put the dry on top and then decided I wanted to dissolve that. There's quite a lot of techniques in my head that is whirring over and over and over in how I would use these. And I think the best place that I could put these is kind of, if you can remember the old Winsor & Newton art bars, or if you think about Inktense, or Inktense blocks, or if you think about watercolour pencils, this is the oil pastel version that sits quite nicely in the middle of that. As an oil pastel, I wouldn't want to do a complete picture with these, or it was very flaky. It didn't blend very well. It might blend better on a warmer day because it is again cool in my studio this time of year. I think that you could do a lot of things. I'm wondering if you can do Scrivito once that's dried as a layer. I think a lot depends on whether the underlayer will stay firm and permanent or reactivate. That is going to solve a lot of problems or make a lot of problems. So as an oil pastel, what would I give them? Probably a 3. But as something as a hybrid in between, looking kind of like the Neo colours, things like that. At the moment, I think I'd probably give them a 5 or a 6 without even experiencing them. Because I can see the possibilities. The Prima ones are quite expensive. The Montmartre ones are a better price for what you get overall. And the Zila are probably around about the same sort of price. So I hope you found that interesting. It's quite a difficult one because I haven't fully experienced them like I would my oil pastels. I'm thinking actually about my tiger that I did because somebody made a comment about that recently. And I'm thinking if I was to do that tiger again and I wanted to do it in this, that would actually be quite a nice one to do because I could do all the orange as an underlayer diluted, and then I could put all the black detail on afterwards once that dried, because I did have quite a lot of problems initially mixing the black, or where the black stripes were mixing with the orange when I was trying to add that on. So I'm wondering if these can fulfill a little gap in that market. So for example, I could perhaps do the orange, dilute it, let it dry, and then go on with the black, knowing full well that I'm not going to pick up that black into the orange, or vice versa for that matter. And then I can reactivate that, or reactivate the black, and then colour that into it. You'd probably end up with more of a watercolour look, but once that is dried, I feel that you could probably then go on to it with the dry oil pastel to give it that oil pastel look. All sorts of permutations are going through my head at the moment, and as soon as I've experienced them and experimented with them a lot more than what I have now, I will come back to you with techniques and ways of doing it, because I am certain that these could be actually quite a good weapon in my arsenal. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll see you either next Saturday or Sunday. It's got to Sundays at the moment for some reason. A lot of that is down to health and tiredness, but we won't go into that because everybody's got problems, haven't they? Anyway, I've got memberships. If you want to join as a member, or if you want to give me a super thanks because you find a particular video of use, it's all appreciated, and it does help me and it helps my channel to grow. And I'm only, I believe, 44 subscribers off my 2,000. And you know what I promised you at 2,000, don't you? I promised you to show you one of my favourite blenders, and I haven't changed that promise. So in 44 subscribers time, possibly before the end of the year, I'm going to show you one of the most useful blenders that I haven't seen anybody in the world use yet, and then you'll know, and you'll be able to use this, and this will help you immensely. Until next time, whomever, wherever you are, please have a great day, great week, and a great year. And as always, please be kind and look after yourselves. Bye for now.